Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Measure for Measure. My name is Sean Casey, and I'm proud to be here speaking with a friend of mine who's a great Vermont musician, Kyle Stevens. Welcome,
Thanks for
Kyle.
having me.
The way I like to do the show is to pretty much keep the routine biographical stuff, to a minimum, and really talk about songwriting and the songwriting process, and we're going to feature a few of your songs. But if you could start out by giving us just a little thumbnail sketch of your who you are and where you're from, and who is Kyle Stevens, and why we're watching the show with him.
I'm Kyle Stevens. I'm a Vermonter, born and bred. I grew up in Milton, Vermont, and always been interested in music. I was an athlete in high school, but I was always kind of had the music thing on the back burner. It stayed on the back burner for a long time till a friend of mine from school came back from the military, and he was a bass player in a metal band for a long time, and his fingers kind of developed some pain from doing all the big stretches of doing that metal bass stuff. And he had decided to pick up a banjo. He had a love of country music, and I also had a love of country music. I kind of like all kinds of music and draw my influence from all that, but he asked me if I was still playing guitar, and yeah, I was playing a little bit, and to come over to his basement and jam, and we did, and ended up forming a little band we had for a little while, the Hillside Hooligans, and we played classic country. Kind of got me more into the music scene, and I worked for 11 years at a snowboard company in the area, and when I got a layoff, I decided to cash in my 401k and start myself a business and get more into the solo music scene. So I started Made in the Shade Entertainment, and I do trivia nights and anything I can do to keep my PA running, but it's all really to keep singing and songwriting going.
Mm-hmm.
So I do DJ work and wedding work, and I run a lot of open mics in the area, and I do trivia nights, whatever I can do to get my PA running.
That's right. You are the trivia king. You have an alter ego.
General knowledge.
And I knew him back when he was Corporal Punishment. So, but no, it's a great. You're entertaining wherever you do. But one of the things that I've always noticed about you is that you're very rooted in the Green Mountains here. You're very proud of your home. And this first song that we're going to have you do is a song you wrote. Tell me about when you wrote it and kind of how it came about. The song "Cobble Country."
Well, I was married at one time. A lot of the inspiration for some of my songs are from that marriage, good or bad. I was married for 10 months, and my ex-wife was from Connecticut, and she I wouldn't say didn't like Vermont because she was here. She didn't understand my love of Vermont, and kind of after my divorce had happened, this song was written around that time when I really wanted to express kind of the love for my hometown mostly. It's called Cobble Country, and there's a place where I did a lot of my growing up in Milton called Cobble Hill, and I got in a lot of trouble up there, and had some good times growing up. And if you look around my hometown of Milton, it's kind of just the foothills of the Green Mountains, and the most prominent feature is in the town geographically is Cobble Hill. And it sticks out right in the middle of the town, and from the top of the cobble you can see pretty much a 360-degree view of Milton. But on the other side of the town there's Arrowhead Mountain, and it's kind of just the foothills of the Green Mountains, and that's kind of where I grew up. So the song's called Cobble Country, and it refers to Cobble Hill.
All right. Let's give a listen to Kyle Stevens and Cobble Country.
Lord, I love this land of the Cabo, in my green mountain home in a valley shadow. Lord, I know wherever I roam, these hills are always home. 'Cause I got the green mountains in my very soul. Oh, where on you wanna go, where the autumn leaves give way to winter snow, and the springtime brings the rain, let the summer bloom again. Lord, I love my four-season home. I'm going to tell you about it now. I'm eastbound off of mile 125. This mountain air makes a country boy come alive. Here amongst these trees of green and the cold flowing mountain stream, oh, the spirit of this place, it was born in me. I long for days here in the place of my birth. You take your Paris and you can keep Rome, just saving my hills of home. The Lord left a little piece of heaven right here on earth. I don't need no woman to make me whole. Everyone I've held has bent and wore my soul. You just saved me a little piece of my sweet cobble country. My lady in green, well, she would never do me wrong. Where the autumn leaves give way to winter snow, and the springtime brings rain, let the summer bloom again. Lord, I love my green mountain home. Say, Lord, I love my four-season home. Lord, I call this cobble country home.
Well, thank you, Kyle. It was a beautiful song. And, you know, one of the things that I didn't know the backstory, and it's kind of interesting to know that. It's one of the things I find fascinating about songwriting and the songwriting process is that, and I explored this a little bit in my music and in speaking with other songwriters, this sense of place and home that is so fundamentally important that it seems to be a key inspiration to people. And to be sort of coming out of that, kind of a downtime when you kind of are taking stock. I'm a divorcee myself and know that, you do tend to, ask questions about who you are and where you've been and what really matters. And kind of that, when you're asking those big questions, I find that they invariably, you work them out. If you're a songwriter, you work them out in song.
Definitely. I find through going in and out of relationships, it's a huge inspiration for songs, one way or another. You know, yeah, you got to get back to yourself. I was an athlete in high school and dropped that for a long time during my marriage. I spoke before that I was married for 10 months, but I actually was with that girl for 6 years and lost a lot of myself in us, you know, as a relationship. I lost a lot of who I was. So, you know, when I was going through the divorce process, I got back into playing hockey and you know, writing songs about who I was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it is. But I've heard you many times, and you always have that sense of place in a lot of other songs that you write and have performed, and a couple we're going to hear. But you know, it's talking about that, you know, heading down east on 125, that type of. You know, there's these like references that, like, and sometimes the Jackson Browne mentions like California 5, that type of thing. That I mentioned this with Carol Ann Jones in another interview that road, you know, to get you from one place to another is always sort of prominent as well. You know, that here I am driving down this road that brings me home.
Actually, that brings me to another song that I do, and you can find it online if you look up my name and look up Song for the Falls. 125 goes up over the Middlebury Gap, and it heads to my camping spot that me and my friends and I have camped at for almost 20 years now. It's a place called Texas Falls in Hancock, Vermont. So 125 goes up over the Middlebury Gap, and anytime I'm heading east on 125, I've got a big smile on my face, and I call it my reset button, kind of getting out in the woods, out of cell phone coverage, and just spending the weekend with, you know, people I truly love and care about.
Mm-hmm. That's a little bit easier to do, getting out of cell phone coverage still in Vermont, especially up in the hills.
Yeah.
But you kind of talked about, and you talk about a lot about, you know, the people that you love, and there's this sense that that home is kind of where your heart is and where those folks are, you know, and you know that's all part of that place for you. You know, that Vermont is. Do you think what is your image of the hale and hearty Vermonter? You know, the person, the typical Vermonter, say.
Well, the typical Vermonter is many things. You know, and there's a lot of different types of folks here in Vermont, but usually the ones that were born and bred here. You know, most of us are into hunting and fishing and being outside and enjoying what we have here. If you look around, our landscape is just beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that sense of place is, as I say, something that I've always heard in your music. Now you do an awful lot of open mics. You run them, and one of the things that always amazes me is how welcoming you are to other musicians, be they singing their own songs or singing karaoke or whatever. That you really seem to thoroughly enjoy music. So it doesn't seem as far a stretch for me to think that you would want to get into the entertainment industry like you have.
I do love it, and I like to say I host it, not run it, because I like to be as gracious of a host as I can, and you know, help people out. I was helped out when I first started. I mentioned before that I had a band, the Hillside Hooligans. I'm a sober alcoholic. I've been sober for 5 years, but I did have trouble during my marriage years because I would say that she was probably an alcoholic as well. If you know, she would admit that kind of thing. I ended up realizing that I thought I was a good drinker because I could drink a lot, and I found out that I was a bad drinker because I couldn't stop. I had no off button. I kind of consumed until it was all gone, or until I passed out, and I realized that was a bad thing for me, and that's kind of when my music started taking off is when I stopped doing all that stuff. But segued from back when I first had my band, I was sitting at a bar that I used to go see Chad Hollister, a great local musician, play every Wednesday. And I was sitting in there on a Wednesday, kind of early after work, having a beer with some friends, and the phone rang, and the bartender actually happened to be a good friend of mine, Jamie Grimes. Hi, Jamie. And he handed me the phone, and it was Chad Hollister, and he said, you know, it's an emergency. I can't make it to my gig tonight. Is there any way you'd be able to sub? Now, I had never played by myself before. I always played in a band situation where, you know, I have people kind of backing me up. So kind of all of a sudden the nerves hit, and I said, yes, I will. And I drove to Milton to find out that all my equipment was locked in my banjo player's basement in our practice space, and he wasn't home and not answering his phone. So I had to kick in the basement window and climb down into the basement and grab all my equipment. I paid for the window, by the way. Sean knows this. And grabbed all my equipment and ran down to, and at the time I just had an amplifier with 2 inputs, and grabbed my guitars and harmonicas and my mics and stands and headed down to the bar and played my first solo gig. And of course, on the way, this was before talking on a phone in your car was illegal, I was calling everybody I knew, you know, that, hey, I have my first solo gig tonight, come on down. And I had a lot of friends that were very supportive of me, and my family, my mother and father, are very, very supportive of me. They're at most of my gigs. They came down, and we had a good night of it, and the owner asked me to run an open mic on Saturdays, and I thought that would be a great opportunity to start cutting my teeth in a solo artist kind of sense. And I ended up running an open mic there for 3 years before that restaurant ended up closing. By the time it closed, I had lost my job at the snowboard company. I had started my own business. I had my band was up and running pretty well at that time, and I had acquired another open mic, so it's kind of up and running. But to bring it back to Mr. Hollister, he did a lot to support me in the beginning, and now through my open mics I get to support a lot of these other up-and-coming musicians and watch them bud from you know, being very apprehensive on the microphone and in front of people, not knowing how to use the equipment, the microphones, and their own guitars when they're plugged in. You know, they're at home practicing, and they're coming out for the first time in front of people, and it's very rewarding to take someone's very nervous at first and see them as a finalist in the singer-songwriter competition this year, John Smythe.
Right, John.
And you know, it's very fun to see, just to watch through. I've been doing it for about 7 years now. To watch a lot of people in bands. There's a band out now, Coon Hill John. They're my new favorite band to watch develop. There's a banjo, a guitar, and a mandolin, and they sometimes have a lead guitar player as well. And it's fun to watch their confidence just come up and them build that ability to entertain a crowd. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad to be able to help them do that. Also, the open mics allow me to kind of keep my finger on the pulse of what's happening. And I'm a fan of all kinds of music. You know, I've gone through phases in my life, and what I've realized is that music is kind of just a big argument to me. Not an argument, but a conversation, if you will. There's a point and counterpoint, as in any kind of argument or conversation. If you listen to one side of the story without listening to the other side of the story, you get a kind of a skewed version of reality. And I find it's the same with music. You kind of have to listen to even though, you know, pop music is kind of overproduced and all this stuff, it does have its place. And, you know, as a DJ, I know that, you know, dropping a certain pop song at a certain time gets everybody on the dance floor, makes everybody happy. It's not the kind of stuff that I would listen to myself when I'm, when I'm doing yard work or doing a project in the garage. I listen to, mostly folk and newgrass music. But I realized that everything has its place. I've gone through a reggae phase, a hip hop phase, and kind of let all of it kind of come into an influence in my songwriting.
Yeah. I know that you are very unintimidating, which is a wonderful thing for a host to be, because people can feel the warmth and know that, well, this is somebody on my side, that he wants to hear my music, and you're a cheerleader for that. And it's a great thing and an important thing for an artist. You mentioned John Smythe. John, I'm coming for you. I've gotten John to commit to an interview as well. He's an amazing songwriter.
He is an amazing songwriter. I love all of his songs, and I can't wait. Every time he tells me he's got a new song, I can't wait to hear it.
That's right. Yeah, and but to have a hand in that, to be welcoming to that, because people can really kind of be made or broken in their perception of what performing is if their first times doing it are very, very intimidating and unfulfilling. So it's an important role. But you as a songwriter, one of the things that you're very demonstrative and loving to your girlfriend Lisa.
Yes, yes.
And,
I have a wonderful
lovely
girlfriend, Lisa.
Yeah, and is this the next song that we're going to hear is a love song, and did you write it for her?
It was inspired by her, yes. She's been the inspiration to several of my songs in the last few years. I wrote a wedding processional song called I Do that's kind of all about her. I wrote one called Greener Grasses. It was about a time when we had trouble saying I love you to each other. We're both divorcees, and we both come from, we both had a situation where we had, I had a condo and a life that got demolished, and she had a house and with kids and a life that got demolished, and it was very hard to give your whole heart to someone again. So a lot of these songs are about that. This song in particular is about a time when we were kind of first seeing each other, where our schedules don't really mesh. I still work a part-time job during the day and entertain 5 nights a week now. So a lot of times I'm out of the house and she's at home kind of waiting for me. And this song kind of comes from a time where she started to get this view that she had a perceived time when I would be home, and if I wasn't home at that time, there was something wrong. And it was kind of my way of giving her confidence that, yeah, I'm out having fun, playing music, but it's also part of my job, and sometimes I need to stay around and support people a little more so that they, that they feel comfortable coming back to my open mics, and so that the owners feel comfortable, the owners of the bars feel comfortable having my open mic in there. Sometimes after you're done, you get done at midnight, but you're in a conversation until 1 o'clock as you're picking up. A lot of these people like to talk to you after the show and pick your brain on sound equipment and stuff like that. And so this was kind of my way of telling her, no matter what happens, I'm coming home to you.
And the name of the song is?
Why Do I Love You So?
All right. So, Kyle Stevens, Why Do I Love You So?
Why do I love you so? Why would you question me? Am I doing enough to show an undying loyalty? Oh, and one of these days, girl, you'll just see I love you faithfully. Oh, would you ask me such a thing? Girl, hasn't our love grown into more than just some summer fling? Oh, and one of these days, girl, you gonna find certainty. I hope you find it, girl. Why do I love you so? Oh, why would you question me? Ain't it enough to know I return when you set me free? Oh, and one of these days, girl, you won't look at my love so skeptically. Oh, why do you do it, girl? Why do I love you so? Ah, girl, oh, ain't plain to see that I'll never let you go. Oh, no, got all the love I'll ever need. Oh, and the sooner you realize that, girl, the sooner we can live blissfully. I'll find your bliss.
Thank you very much, Kyle. Beautiful song. Played on your beautiful new Taylor guitar.
Yes, my saint of a mother, Darlene Stevens, and my father, Jay, pitched in to get me that for my birthday. And I like to say it's my first real guitar. I've gone through a lot of guitars, and my playing style has changed through the years, but I call myself a banger. I'm not really the best guitar player. I'm not really the best singer. I like to perform, and I like to draw audiences in, and that's what I'm most proud of, is my performing and kind of drawing audiences in. I call myself kind of a banger on the guitar. I'm not that pretty of a guitar player. There's many that play it a little more pretty than I do, such as yourself. But so I've gone through a lot of $300 guitars, because that's I didn't want to invest a lot of money on something I was just going to break.
Well, I think that what that last song really showed, and what I always get from your music is I always hear, even in the ballads, very much a bluesy feel, or a bluesy cadence, or
Isn't everything
tendency.
really rooted in blues? I'm a really big fan of old-time country and Johnny Cash and Waylon Jennings and all those people, and all that old-time country is definitely rooted in blues. And I was a big fan of classic rock and Led Zeppelin and The Who, and once again, it's all rooted in blues.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Now as far as what's coming in the future, now you have quite a collection of songs going. Any inkling to maybe put out an EP or a record at
I
some
would
point?
love to. It's about finding the right person and collecting the money to get into the studio, and schedule. I do work during the day, and then usually get home long enough to take a shower, change my clothes, post on Facebook, Kyle Stevens on Facebook, where I'm at for a gig, and promote my gigs coming up for the weekend, and do all that stuff. So I really have like 3 or 4 hours sometimes at home before I'm loading up the car and going out to St. Albans or Burlington or Essex or wherever I happen to be that night. Excuse me.
Yeah, you know, and one of the things that always amazes me is kind of the way songwriters go about that whole inspiration thing. You know, how any set rules sort of thumb of like when a song comes, it really comes fast for you, or is it something you might be tooling around in your head for a while with?
You know, they come in different ways, but I find some of my better songs, at least that I believe, they come all at once. There's a song you can find online, "Guilt and the Art of Self-Reflection," which I wrote after my divorce, and it goes through kind of, there's 8 verses, 7 of them are about the 7 sins, and the last one's kind of a recap of how it affects you, or how you feel it affecting you. If you do commit those kind of things, it's kind of, I find most people don't have the ability to look inward at themselves, and it's a very hard thing to do. Sometimes I let that slip, and I'm not able to look inward at myself and see how I affect other people. But I think that's one of the most important things. It's what I try to teach my daughter and my girlfriend's daughters, and have influence on other people. But that song did come kind of all of a sudden. I have another song, "If Just for Tonight," that came all of a sudden. Those are the songs that come out, and you get the concept in your head, and maybe you're driving home, or maybe it pops into your head while you're at work, and you can't wait to get back to your home and get to a guitar and hash it all out. But those are the ones that you sit down and hash out, and within an hour, they're done. Other songs take a little while, and I've found no matter if I write it down or not, like I'll get like what I think is a good line or a good phrase in my head, and I'll write it down. I'll put it in the console of my truck, or it'll roll around on the floor, or it'll be on the floor of my office, and it'll get lost. But when you're writing the song that it fits in, you don't need to find the paper. It comes back. You're like, oh, there's that line I had that one time that fits right into what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, I found that sometimes they seem complete gifts from the muse. All of a sudden, all I have to do is write this down without screwing it up, and it's fine. But you'd mentioned about writing down ideas on a piece of paper, because you get that flash of inspiration sometime. Reminded me of something I heard Gordon Lightfoot say when he was introducing a song called "Carefree Highway," and he said that he'd written down this "Carefree Highway" and maybe the first line of it on this piece of paper, and he said, and it was almost left in a rental car in New Mexico. So one time, and then he just thought, wait a minute, I wrote down something there, and he went back and got it, and it did end up formulating the song "Carefree Highway." So it's kind of funny how those little flashes of inspiration come to you, and they will stay. It's almost like a muscle memory that they trigger something else. I know what I meant, even though it's just a few words. Like where he was "Carefree Highway," and he might have said, what was that about? But he knew exactly, that I'm going to write a song about, and in that song it's like, "Carefree Highway, let me slip away from you." Maybe it's like a song about regret, and about taking how the road kind of made him kind of not available. But and he knew exactly what those words meant. So that little snippet sometimes is kind of the muse, and it's nice when you can go back to it. But some of them, as you say, come in a one fell swoop, and there they are.
Still others come from a guitar riff or a chord progression that you came up with while practicing. Usually when I pick up a guitar, before I go ahead and warm up the songs that I think I'm going to play that night wherever I'm performing, I usually just mess around with some different chords, or put a capo on, or tune my guitar different and kind of mess around with it. And sometimes those come up with riffs or chord progressions that you end up writing a song for later.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Now I'm glad to hear that you're considering going in the studio, because I really am a fan of your music. The more I hear of your originals, That's what I love about this show is we're actually required by sort of law to do only our original songs. So I never have to tell somebody do a cover tune, because
Yeah,
it's so
yeah.
great to have somebody that a venue and you can actually come and talk about your music. And do you find that crowds at the open mics are very, very open-minded to original music?
Certain open mics are very musician heavy. I do one at Backstage in Essex on Monday nights that's very musician heavy. So an original song will go over very well because a musician wants to hear everyone else's original music. Some of them, some of the open mics, like the one I'm doing tonight here in St. Albans at Shooters on Thursdays, there's musicians there to play the open mic, but it's an open mic / karaoke that I run, Vermont's Next Star. It's a rotating contest that I run at 2 different places. I run that at Franio's on Sunday as well in South Burlington. Both of those gigs are more, less musicians are there. So I find that your regular bar patron, they do want to hear something that's been on the radio, something that they can recognize and sing along with. So in that kind of instance, you kind of play a few of those. I like to mix it up because I do a lot of different styles of music. So I'll play an old country tune, and then I'll play a rock tune, and then I do a lot of converted hip hop and pop tunes that are kind of crowd pleasers because they get people's ear. This song sounds familiar, but I don't know where from. I'll pick up a banjo. I run my loop pedal and pick up a banjo or play some harmonica to kind of get people's ear in a different way and get them listening, and then hit them with an original tune so that, I find it also to any musicians out there, if you're going to do this kind of thing, never say that it's your original tune first, especially if you've got the audience. If you've got them and they're listening, just hit the original tune. Don't tell them it's an original ahead of time. Wait for them to come up after your set, and this is one of the things that makes me feel the best after a set is when someone comes up and says, "Who did that song? That song that you did after that Johnny Cash tune, who did that?" And you go, "Oh, that was my tune. I wrote that."
Yeah.
And it really feels good.
I've heard of some bands that will actually announce a tune. This is a song by the Pogues or something like that, and it's really their own.
Yeah.
And then they, to get over sort of that tendency some people might have to
Stop
maybe
listening.
stop listening, and
Yeah.
say, well, it's something I'm probably not going to want to invest my ear in.
Yeah.
And hey, Bob O'Reilly was played the first time at one point.
Yep.
Everything was starts somewhere. But now you wrote a beautiful song that you did the other night at a breast cancer benefit that we did together.
Best night ever.
Yeah, the best night ever.
Thank you, Troy.
Troy Millette hosted it with Isaac French.
Isaac French.
And
Bethany
great time
Connors
had
was
by
there.
all. Great people. Yeah.
Yep.
Quinn Hilljohn.
Casey was there.
You sang a song, and I've heard you do it before, and it might be looked at as sort of a downer topic, but sort of the legacy you want to leave for somebody, about, all right, what is this mortality, and what am I here on this earth, and what do I want to be remembered for? And you wrote a song about that called Legacy that we're going to hear. Can you tell a little bit about kind of how you came to write it, and was there a dramatic experience that kind of got you thinking along those lines, or?
I would say mostly a religious experience, you could call it that, I guess. I'm really big into Vermont history. You can find one of my songs online if you Google "Song for the Vermonters." Now, "Song for the Vermonters" I kind of stole most of it, but it's from a public domain, so it's okay. It was a 250-year-old poem written by John Greenleaf Whittier and Ethan Allen that I found online when I was researching Vermont history. And I'm really big into Vermont history, and it's got a very interesting and colorful history. We actually had the first Constitution in the New World. Our Constitution was written before the United States Constitution. And it was the first free state on the planet to abolish slavery. So we have a very interesting and colorful history here in Vermont. And I found this 250-year-old poem that I wrote a chorus to and call it Song for the Vermonters. That's actually the name of the poem, Song for the Vermonters. So if you do Google it, you'll find people reciting the actual poem, and you'll find me doing my song out in front of the Ethan Allen gravesite, the giant monument in Burlington. I forget where I was going with this.
Well, we were talking about the
legacy.
the song legacy. Mm-hmm.
Legacy. Well, legacy came as you leave on the people around you. You know, you could be the most horrible person on the planet, but if you invest some money and they name a building after you, it seems people may remember you in a good light. But on a more personal level, I want to make sure that people around me and the people I love will always remember me for any kindness I can show.
All right. So let's listen to the song Legacy by Carl Stevens.
Buddy, don't you lay me 6 feet down. Scatter my ashes to the wind, and don't you lay me in the cold, cold ground. When I'm dead and gone, I'd rather ride the wind than rot. And if you need a stone to remember my name, I'd rather be forgot. 'Cause in the hearts and in the minds of the ones I love and leave behind, when they search down deep, I know they'll find a little piece of me from my time. A little piece of me that I leave behind. So burn my body, don't you lay me 6 feet down. Scatter my ashes to the wind, and don't you lay me in the cold, cold ground. When I'm dead and gone, I'd rather ride the wind than rot. And if you need a stone to remember my name, I'd rather be forgot. Everybody wants a little peace, of immortality. Someone to carry on, some sort of legacy. Treat people well, don't let hell become your destiny. A little peace of mind that I find, treating people kind, that's ecstasy. That's heaven to me. So burn my body, don't you lay me 6 feet down. Scatter my ashes to the wind, and don't you lay me in the cold, cold ground. When I'm dead and gone, I'd rather ride the wind than rot. And if you need a stone to remember my name, I'd rather be forgot. One day I'll face my judgment. What will they say? Will they mourn my passing, or just curse my name? When my deeds are laid bare, what will you see? Is it how I loved and how I cared that become my legacy? Well, is that me? Oh, burn my body, don't you lay me 6 feet down. Scatter my ashes to the wind, and don't you lay me in the cold, cold ground. When I'm dead and gone, I'd rather ride the wind than rot. And if you need a stone to remember my name, I'd rather be forgotten. Yes, I'd rather be forgotten. I'd rather be forgotten.
Golly, it really touches me when you talk about that. That I'd rather, if you need some sort of stone monument to remember me, I'd rather you forget me. That it's about what I can bring to people personally and what I can leave them with.
Well, I
It's so
know
important.
everyone that has passed, that has been meaningful to me, I'll never forget. I just wrote a song for my friend Libby, who passed recently, another open micer and just a wonderful person. I'll never forget some of the things she said to me and some of the kind sentiments she gave me. My grandmother, my daughter is named after my grandmother. Her middle name is Ruth, and that's my grandmother. I'll never forget the influence she had on me, and I think that's much more important than any kind of stone monument or building you can leave behind is what you leave in the hearts and the minds of the people around you.
And your music.
And your music, yeah.
All right. Kyle Stevens, I want to thank you very, very much for being on the award-winning show, Measure for Measure.
Thank you
By
so
the
much
way,
for having me.
I'd like to just let the folks know that this is a Peggy. This is the equivalent of an Emmy. And I'm happy and proud to say that Measure for Measure received this from the television station for this first season. And we've started out with a high bar, and we hope to continue along those lines, and with songwriters of Kyle's caliber coming, and we're looking forward to many more discussions. And I thank you again, Kyle, for your time and your music.
Thank you so much. I can't wait to catch future episodes of Measure for Measure. I know you're going to have John Smythe on and a lot of my
That's right.
favorite singer-songwriters.
All right, terrific. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you all.
Thank you.